We are back with our next talk of the event, which is Björn talking about the substrate ecosystem, the big picture. So please take it away, Björn.
Hey, everyone. Today, I'm delighted to give you a short update on what we've seen the substrate ecosystem evolve into over the last year, really. For that, I'll be looking at our ecosystem from 4 different angles. Let's start with technology. As you all know, right, there are many bits and pieces that need to fall into place for a blockchain framework to be particularly useful. In the case of Substrate, it all started with its eponymous client node code base, which has been our Parity's flagship offering for creating nodes to be run on server and desktop. Now, if you followed the previous talks of today, you will have heard that we've just released 2 more clients that I'm really excited about. Small dot being one, which is an ultra lightweight client designed for resource constrained environments such as mobile and embedded systems, as well as Substrate Connect, which now lets you and your chain's users run basically any substrate-based chain right from within their browser. But we haven't been the only ones that were hard at work. Other community members haven't stood still either. So on the client libraries front, for example, we've seen the rise of APIs for basically every major programming language, most of them built and maintained by other companies than Parity. And it really doesn't end at just client libraries, right? There's a multitude of other tools that make Substrate a compelling home for Web3 builders. To name a few, I listed here a few for you guys that I think are definitely worth checking out if you haven't used them yet. One being Sidecar, which has had dozens of businesses by providing an easy way to interact with Substrate nodes via REST service. Then we have Subquery, which really enables everyone to process and query their chain data. And last but not least, as our tools built by Schefter, which really lets you build your Substrate WASM runtime in a deterministic way. Now, overall, we've seen the amount of APIs, tools, and services, such as those that I was just speaking about, that are readily available more than triple over the past 12 months. In total, we are looking at more than 80 products being available to make Substrate builders more productive today. But really, looking at the data, I believe that's really just the beginning. As, for example, we're tracking another, I believe, 83 products and services currently being developed by and for the Substrate community. Now, I brought you a little map here to emphasize how diverse the categories are in which tools are being built today, right? As we talked about client libraries, we have those. We have a multitude of really good block explorers by now. The dev tooling is really coming together, other sort of dev tooling. On the smart contract side, we have a couple of VMs now. We have at least 3 smart contract languages that can target substrate-based chains. And even on the services side, we've worked pretty heavily with different auditors in our space and facilitated work with our community projects to really get them up to speed and have them be a very significant resource for security audits and reviews. Now, let's go over to the runtime engineering side of things, the chain's business logic, right? There we see a similar picture of tremendous growth of available modules. Today, more than 300 frame palettes have been published. Now, hearing about these quite significant numbers, both on the component side and frame palette side, you may ask, how do I find them, right? And rest assured, our team has been working also on that pretty hard, and specifically on creating a product for making it orders of magnitude easier to discover palettes and all these other platform tools mentioned. And I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to share our work with the community in the not too distant future. So next, I want to share with you a little bit more about the human side of things, like in the ways the community has come together. Over the past 1.5 years, our community has come together over 500 times. And surprisingly, a good part, if not even the majority of these gatherings, have been in-person meetups. Again, organized predominantly by other community members in Parity. And if you look at the geographic distribution, you will really see that those gatherings have taken place all across the world. And I'm really happy to see that. On one hand, we see the usual suspects, such as Berlin, in terms of locations, as well as new local communities forming, such as in Belgrade, where we recently had the first meetup recently took place, as well as in Chengdu, China, which all have been part of those efforts. I think overall, it's really fair to say that our community is flourishing across online, in meet space, and as well on social media. Now, for example, on GitHub, right, we see hundreds of unique contributors across alone the core Substrate repositories. So let's speak about clients and some of these libraries that plug into our client. But beyond that, and that's something that even excites me more, right, is that we see thousands of ecosystem repos. And beyond that, again, right, we see our Substrate technical chat room or metric today boasts, I believe, 6,000 active users, and the Substrate Discord gathers an incredible 13,000 participants today. Last but not least, you all are aware that there are significant overlaps between the Polkadot community and the Substrate community, as well as with the Kusama community. And on the Polkadot side, they exist in a ambassador program, which today has over 1,700 members and is thereby one of the largest community programs of such kind. And Twitter, is going really well as well. So I welcome you to follow and join the program, ambassador program, if you're interested to contribute and maybe start your own local community in a place where you are, if you don't have one. Now, next I want to talk chains, right? That's the sort of things that we are all here to build at the end of the day, right? Or that we are set to enable other people to build. We at Parity are really, really, really excited that we can follow more than 150 teams building a blockchain with Substrate today. And again, I brought a little map for you today to get a sense of which sub-ecosystems are particularly flourishing, or as other ecosystems, sub-ecosystems really could use a couple of healthy competitors. And I believe as one would expect, right? There are a multitude of amazing projects, particularly pushing the boundaries in DeFi as well as the NFT gaming space. But we are also seeing many blockchains that seek to provide compelling functionality to application developers, and even other blockchains, such as in the multi-chain context of Polkadot today. Like I'm thinking here, the identity projects, right? The distributed file storage projects, right? As well as some others that you see here. Bridge projects, for example, right? Let's go on. As of today, 26 Substrate-based projects have launched a production network. That's super impressive, given the amount of time this framework has existed. Overall, we see that there are at the very, very least, more than 10,000 Substrate-based nodes running today. And honestly, I expect the hidden figure here to be much, much higher, as our telemetry service caps the number of nodes that we track per network at roughly 500. The 26 production networks that I mentioned, right, boast together a mind-boggling combined market cap of around $50 billion today. And, from here, I really want to go into opportunities, right? Opportunities that our ecosystem presents to those that might be new to it. So let's get to the chase for those of you that want to get more involved with Substrate and its community. So I believe, let's start with individuals, right? For those developers of you that haven't, aren't part of a larger team yet, that haven't started a company yet. I think no matter if you're just getting started, right? Or you're even having been hacking with Substrate all along, right? I highly, highly recommend you checking out our brand new and just launched Substrate website under substrate.io, where besides other things, you will find much learning materials for really all levels of all skill levels. Now, let's go from here, right? Let's think. I guess if you don't want to, if you want to get started, but you don't want to walk alone, right? Learning alone. One way to get started is join hundreds of other students that have taken part in the readily available Substrate courses, right? I believe to date there have been roughly 13 or 14 cohorts that have been facilitated by these different course providers. An alternative is you really show up at the Substrate seminar, which is our version of a free collaborative online learning. Now, if you don't want any teaching and instead get your hands dirty right away, for the hackers out there, check out some of our tutorials, again, to be found on Substrate.io, or join one of the upcoming Substrate or Polkadot hackathons. Some of our team members have been really hard at work here, putting together a new global series that will reach all developers in all regions. Now, I believe, if I'm correct, we start with the APAC region, and that should be, if it hasn't been announced already, it should be announced very soon. And with these hackathons, you might actually, besides having a great learning experience, I think you might even end up starting your very own project right after. Now, if you're more the type that is keen to team up with today's Substrate experts, right, to join a team that already has a tremendous amount of knowledge internally, right, please come forward and join Parity, our company, the Web3 Foundation, or one of the very dozens of other companies that are hiring right now. I can highly recommend there to check out .jobs.nest, which when I checked earlier today, I listed over 192 open positions. And I think together that really shows these Substrate skills are in very high demand today. So let's see where we go from here. Right. Are you ready to start your own project? Or maybe have you started your own project already? Well, I think that would be fantastic and is fantastic, and our community is here to help. Again, no matter if you as a team, right, are very small and you're just getting started, or you're already a sizable teams, we've come to a place where there really are funding opportunities for everyone, right? So on one hand, right, if we look at venture funding, we see that today over 50 major VC firms are actively looking to invest in Substrate-based projects. And I think more than 100 million has been deployed today. Beyond that, we've seen a bunch of incubators and accelerators in recent months really have become very active in our ecosystem, and we know of some more following suit in the coming month. Now, for example, and as an example here, right, like a interesting tidbit, I believe more than half of the UC Berkeley's last accelerator cohort was building with Substrate. Now, if you're not really looking for venture funding, right, and are much more interested in grants for building open source technologies, again, regardless if you're, a sole warrior, keyboard warrior, or if you are a well-functioning team, right, I highly recommend you to check out the Web3 Foundation Grants Program, as well as what's been happening on the Polkadot and Kusama on-chain treasuries. Looking at the Web3 Foundation Grants Project, right, to give you some numbers here, right, those, for instance, have awarded over 300 proposals with a total of over $100 million to date. And I think even more excitingly for me, the Polkadot and Kusama on-chain treasuries, right, in a decentralized fashion, has heavily increased their activity and has by now funded over 140 proposals with tokens worth over 30 million US dollars at today's value. Last but not least, I would like to encourage you to check out what our team at Parity has to offer for you in terms of technical support. And I think there are two good ways for you to do that. Number one, and that's a better one, stay on the line, enjoy my my colleague Ben's talk. I think that's taking place right after mine here. Or alternatively, go on Substrate.io on the community section. There's an opportunity section where you can read about many of these things and figure out how you can get the support that I presented here. And that's about it. Thank you very much, guys. And I'm available for any questions now.
All right. Thank you very much, Björn. We certainly have a few questions here. But before we start, I just want to remind people that if you are interested in joining the ecosystem, we do have a jobs chat board right now happening on Discord. So please feel free to go over there. Or if you are looking for someone for your project to work with you, that job board is also a good place for you to post your own job descriptions. So one question that came up is, do you have any recommendations for people that are non-technical to get involved in the Substrate ecosystem?
100%. I think like generally the Substrate ecosystem is a rather technical one because it is in itself a developer tool that you can use for all sorts of technical stuff, right? And it certainly is a powerful tool to build your Web3 business on top of it. Yet, what I've seen might be a better starting point is the Polkadot and Kusama communities online, right? I believe in their chat channels and even in the meetups, right? Check out the Polkadot ambassador programs. That is really, they also have events where also non-technical people really come together. Now, on the other hand, I believe, Bill, you might have a course that might be interesting for one or the other that isn't as deeply technical. Is that right?
Yes. So if you are interested in learning blockchain from the fundamentals, you can learn through my MOOC, Blockchain Fundamentals, which you can find on the Polkadot channel. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to shill my course, Björn. Appreciate it.
For sure. Beyond that, there are a couple of other things that come to my mind, right? So generally, I think the best thing is go out there, talk to people, be it online or go to in-person events and just socialize and share your ideas and brush up on your knowledge, right? That's one. The other one is really there are a number of incubators, right, that will help you, will facilitate teaming you up with technical folks, right? And sometimes that's really just what you need, right? And I think we certainly should think ourselves about making that a lot easier, right? Maybe starting a forum, maybe starting a matchmaking platform where we bring people together in order to facilitate that. And last but not least, on the hackathon side of things, I would say that's a great starting point too. Because what people often forget is that at hackathons, you need folks, for example, that understand design, right? That don't just code, understand design. You need folks that understand their industries very well. So if you're an industry expert, I've seen hackathons where people would have killed to have somebody that really understands supply chains or some other industry to actually validate their ideas and make sense of their products, right? So like, don't take it too much as a hurdle, you not knowing yourself the ins and outs of Substrate, and really just make sure you go out there and give it a try.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Not just for this, but for life, right? To go out there and give it a try.
Yeah.
Do you have some ideas of particular areas or types of tools that would be valuable for the ecosystem? That would be ideas for people to work on?
Yes, I do. And I can also point you to a few points, few places where you can stay in the loop now. So one resource that I would like to point out particularly is the Web3 Foundation grants GitHub, because they actually have RFPs open on one hand and give you a good sense of what is needed and asked for by other communities members. Now, like if I, moonshot, my kind of moonshot try here, right? Just shouting it out. If you're one of the 24, right now, that could build a ZK parachain, right? That could do that, then I think you will have plenty of opportunity to get all the support in the world to make that a successful endeavor. But really, in all these areas that I pointed out earlier, right? Like be it on more the benchmarking testing side of things, right? Like making it much easier to, for example, determine the weights that your runtime should assign to certain functions, right? That's an incredibly useful tool. If you go more in the security analysis, right? Statistical analysis side of things, right? Super helpful. On the IDE side of things, right? Like we do have some plugins here and there for IDEs that make it easier to build runtimes, right? That gives you all the builds and risks to get your productivity up. But I believe there's still a lot of room to build better products and better services. Yeah, I honestly, I think the opportunities are pretty endless here, right?
Yeah.
And even if you go out there and see, what's already available, and I'm sure we will publish my slides somewhere, right? And you take that as a starting point, play around with some things. There will be obvious ideas that come to your mind, how you can potentially even combine certain of these things to create very compelling tools and offerings and products.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's a great answer and covers a lot. So actually, you had brought up supply chain in your answer, and this brings me to another question that somebody had asked, which are there enterprise projects right now on running on Polkadot, or people developing on Substrate, or is this mostly like new teams, greenfield development, or are there enterprise projects applying this to current large industry?
There is so interesting enough, there is a range of enterprise projects, even though historically we as Parity at least haven't focused on catering to enterprises, right? Over the years, right, we have ramped up our efforts there, right, to also present enterprise with a compelling offering so that they can use this very, I think, tremendously interesting tool for enterprises to pick it up. And I want to give you a couple of examples. So I'm aware of, actually, are my slides still there? Because you can actually see a couple of these. Now, I'm going to wrap it up quickly. So we have transparent systems, amazing folks, right, that build a money market system, payment system, B2B payment system, and straight up focus on banks as their clients. Actually, you might be aware, it was shared with me that a bank called Northern Trust runs Substrate nodes, right? We have a number of other clients, German government agencies such as the German Agency for Energy is building a Substrate-based chain. We have MediLedger from Chronicled building with Substrate for the pharmaceutical supply chain industry. And there are a bunch of more that I might have missed. Now, one thing I want to say, if you're interested in that, make sure to reach out to us. We do have an enterprise team that have ramped up their efforts quite tremendously over the last 6 months, and they would be more than happy to speak to you and connect you with relevant parties as it might be interesting to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Björn. We are out of time. I appreciate answering all of the questions and, of course, for the presentation.